Hey everybody, welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Thanks again for watching. Hey, got a lot of good responses over the last week, and most of you had good things to say, so I appreciate that. It's always good to hear the good stuff. Had a lot of good critiquing as well, some really meaningful critiquing. I think it's a good thing as we begin to launch this and we begin to get it out there. I appreciate all of you downloading, sharing it, and liking it, and so forth. Some of you wanted to see and understand what's on the wall behind me. I know that those of you listening in your cars on the podcast are going to be at a disadvantage, but go over to YouTube and you can see this, the video of this at least. So I'll take a step aside and describe to you what you see. Is a few knickknacks in the home office. There's a autographed picture of myself and my newborn son Michael almost 18 years ago with Sarah, the Duchess of York. She came and paid us a visit, and she sent an autographed picture. Very kind of her. Rush Limbaugh, autographed picture of him up there. Some Trump memorabilia with the Trump Punisher emblem up there. You can see it on top, the silver emblem, and some Elvis memorabilia. I'm a big Elvis fan, the king of rock and roll, and as John Lennon said, before Elvis there was nothing. And an autographed picture of Bob Hope. I'm down on the bottom of the bookshelf. There's some baseballs autographed. They're pictured with Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon with Cheap Trick. The President Trump flag, the American flag, some Chiefs Kingdom and Royals clippings from the newspaper during their World Series run and so forth. So there's the office. There's the home studio for those of you. There was about 50 of you who said, hey, we want to see that. So, hey, if there's 50 people wanting to see it, it's far be it for me to interfere with that. But the news of the day, the name in the news that I want you to remember is Garrett Rolfe. Garrett Rolfe, the officer, the innocent officer in Georgia, in Atlanta, who's been accused of murdering Rayshawn Brown. And I think that what we are seeing, what we saw the other day, was the district attorney of Atlanta try a case right there on TV, in the media, and it was shameful. Putting on all these cameras, all of this evidence, and so forth and so on. None of it made sense with regards to the charges, at least, that were filed against him. And Garrett Rolfe is innocent. Look, have you ever in your life, I'm talking to all of you reasonable people out there, have you ever in your life wrestled with a police officer? Have you ever stolen the police officer's gun or taser and then run away from the officer only to turn and start firing back? I sure as heck haven't. And he's dead because of it. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, and believe me, I'm not one, to figure out that if you're going to wrestle, resist, assault, steal weapons from police officers, and then turn to fire upon them, the police officer has a right to defend himself and to shoot back. And for all of those folks out there that believe the Biden-esque mantra about, well, just shoot them to wound them, shoot them in the leg, shoot them in the kneecap, shoot them in the thigh, shoot them, don't shoot to kill. Well, look, that is so intellectually immature that I can't really go into a description because it would be too lengthy to describe the vacancy of that intellectual thought. They don't have time, police officers don't, to think, to shoot, to wound, this and that. They're running, they're firing, the guy's firing at them, they're ducking, and they shoot. And it's too bad the guy's dead, but it's also simply too bad that he didn't comply and that he fought, he resisted, and he fired a weapon back at the police officers. Now, never mind that he had been arrested dozens upon dozens of times before and was released because of the COVID-19 myth. And he didn't want to go back to jail. He knew that an arrest would lead him back to jail. So, of course, he resists, he's drunk, and the rest is history. So, Garrett Rolfe, R-O-L-F-E. Remember the name, support him, and he is an innocent law enforcement officer, in my opinion. Let me tell you about Paul Howard, another name that you should remember, but his name will be remembered in infamy. Paul Howard is the district attorney in Atlanta who is in a hotly contested re-election campaign down there against a woman by the name of Fannie Willis, who was once upon a time one of his assistants. Fannie has, among others, has pointed out to us the very, very significant shortcomings of Mr. Paul Howard, one of which is where it's reported that the city of Atlanta spent $250,000 on the district attorney's office for crime prevention programs. It was supposed to go back into the community in the guise of supporting crime prevention programs. Except that 80% 80% of the $250,000. $200,000. What's your math? What's your math skill? Went into the paychecks in the pockets of the district attorney, Paul Howard. How about that? He's been accused of sexual assault, number of women coming out, and he's got his own problems. And so, of course, he's going to try to put on a show, but he does it at the expense of an innocent police officer. And it was shameful to watch him on TV try this case without the opportunity for anyone to counter or to challenge his comments and his remarks and the evidence and so forth that he put forth, which was incredibly lame, incredibly disrespectful, and I've lawyer friends of mine saying it was pretty much a good cause for disbarment. Crazy, just crazy. So what he did by putting Officer Rolfe on trial in the media there on television was basically a stunt using the mob as a backdrop. It was like, it's like watching some sort of a gladiator movie, right? Paul Howard played Caesar. His office was the Colosseum. The media and the Black Lives Movement matter that spurred this whole thing on were the mob. And Paul Howard's tactics, his incredibly immoral and unjust procedural conduct within his office, his tactics were the brutal animals by which he would try to devour Officer Rolfe. Well, we're not going to let it stand, and I hope that this whole thing will play out in court, obviously, and I hope that Garrett Rolfe will be found innocent of these charges. There's so many significant charges against this officer, including that could lead to the death penalty. For a guy who was simply defending his life against a long-term criminal firing a weapon at him. And in other news, the Supreme Court continues its interesting decision-making process with regards to DACA today. The often called the Dreamers. And again, look, a lot of conservative folks are panicking about this ruling. They're especially lambasting Chief Justice John Roberts, who sided with the minority on this particular decision and said that President Trump basically can't end DACA with an executive order. Now, but I've read the ruling, so here's what they've said. This is not gloom and doom here. This is not necessarily bad news. They did say that DACA can be ended. It just suggested that it has to go through the proper legislative procedure. So in other words, the court said you can't end this kind of legislation with an executive order. You've got to have Congress amend the law, amend the legislation, and the president signs it into law. Now, of course, the pundits, and rightly so, point out that, well, President Obama started DACA with an executive order. He didn't go through the legislative process to start DACA, which is true. So why can't President Trump end DACA with an executive order? Because President Obama started it with an executive order. And I get that. That's frustrating. But it is what it is. We go through the process. Another reason why we need to reelect the president to get this thing remedied through the legislative procedure. So there is, good news on the other side of that bad news. So we can still end it. We can still get our illegal alien situation under control, secure the borders, and DACA can be eliminated, and we'll just have to go through the legislative process. So good news. It was not great news today, but it's not something that cannot be overcome. So I still think that it's a wake-up call for the conservative movement to make sure that we're out there. We are the large majority of people. Again, I say it continually, and you've probably heard me say it before, with every bizarre decision that the New Democratic Socialist Party makes with regards to anything they throw out there, COVID, economic shutdowns, They draw themselves into and push the rest of the country towards the Republican Party. So have faith, vote Republican, another reason why we should do so and elect the president. And California, once again, Governor Newsom talking about nudging the nation towards the Republican Party. Governor Newsom has now mandated that everybody in California has to wear a mask. They have to wear a mask when they're out in public places and so forth. And let me make it clear. Masks are no longer a sign of health in this country. They have nothing to do with taking care of your health. The masks are an outward sign of capitulation to the mob. They're an outward sign of capitulation to the mob. It's political signaling away from the Founding Fathers and towards Karl Marx. It's what the New Democratic Socialist Party is signaling. Away from the founders, towards Karl Marx, and the masks are a sign of animus towards President Trump. They are not about your health. I don't think after the first few weeks of the COVID thing, the masks had anything to do with health. Everybody at the beginning wanted to be careful, and we should have been. But come on. The lights came on a few weeks after this whole catastrophe began, and to think that we needed to shut down and wreck an entire economy because of this became a big, big deal, and it's clear that the masks were never about your health. Now, of course, they're saying now that the riots have calmed down that there's a second wave coming. There's a second wave of the COVID virus coming, everybody. We've got to take cover. We've got to shut down the economy again. Everybody's got to wear a mask. Watch, it's going to happen because nothing they've thrown against the wall is sticking against President Trump. So here we go. And I'm telling you right now, if you're a political appointee, if you're an elected official, I should say, and if you are rooting for, cheering for, and suggesting that we shut this economy down again, we need to vote you out. We're just not going to put up with it. We cannot let what happened before, earlier in this year, the economic shutdown, become a template by which we respond to every other pandemic that comes our way. And there will be others. Let's face it, there's going to be other things, but the shutdown of an economy cannot be the template by which we respond. It simply can't be. More people have been economically hurt, destroyed, killed, and shattered from the economic shutdown than the virus has ever touched. Fauci, get him out of here. If I hear another word from that guy who's never been right, he's never been right about this thing. None of his projections about deaths, total infections, and so forth have been correct. How this guy has swayed an entire world to shut down is beyond me, but never again. It can't happen again. We won't allow it to. It's not the template. The template is to stay open. You know what saves lives? Not staying home. All of you people that are putting stay home, it saves lives on your cover photos and Facebook and Twitter, you're full of it. And you're off base and you're incredibly incorrect. You know what saves lives? A thriving, open economy. That's what saves lives. In a wrecked economy, people die. In a wrecked economy, we can't provide adequate health care. People become desperate. People become depressed. People become dependent upon drugs and alcohol, and people die. A thriving, robust, open economy saves lives. You want to look at wrecked economies across the globe? Go right ahead. Take a look at any country you want to that has a wrecked economy. People are not thriving. People don't stay home and save lives in wrecked economies. People stay home and they die. Don't ever let anybody tell you that we need to shut down the economy again, and get rid of the masks. They're not about your health. Unless you're medically fragile or elderly or have a pre-existing medical condition that might put you at risk, then by all means, take care of yourself. But for everybody else who pushes this agenda of the masks and the shutdowns, they're full of it. You need to disengage from them, and you need to vote them, if they're political officials, out of office. Thanks for watching. This is Doug Billings on the right side. Please believe it.